Women have up to 70 to 80% lower creatine stores than men, and most of us have never been told that. Today, we're talking about what that means for your brain, your sleep, your energy, and why this supplement you probably dismissed as a gym bro thing might be one of the most important tools for women in midlife. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast, brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Lisa Joy Thompson, and every week we bring you the science, the stories, and the straight talk you need to feel better and live free. From real food to hormone health to breaking free from yo-yo dieting for good. This is the show for every woman who's ready to stop surviving and start thriving. Settle in, friend. What you're about to hear might just change everything. Hey friend, I'm so glad you're here today. My name is Lisa Thompson. I'm a certified naturopathy practitioner, master certified life and mindset coach, CEO of Thinlicious, a wife, mom of 5, and Gigi to 6 of the most adorable grandkids. And today's topic is one that hits close to home for me personally. My mom has Parkinson's disease, and it has made me look at brain health completely differently. So when the research on creatine started pointing toward the brain, I paid attention. And honestly, what I found surprised me because I'd always thought of creatine the same way most women do. It's the stuff guys take at the gym, the powder in that enormous plastic tub. Not exactly something that felt relevant to me. But it turns out we've been looking at it completely wrong. The research coming out in the last several years, specifically on women, brain health, and what happens to our bodies in midlife, that research tells a completely different story, and that's exactly what we're getting into today. So first, what is creatine really? Creatine is a naturally occurring compound that your body actually makes. It's made primarily in your liver and kidneys from amino acids. You also get some from food, mainly red meat and fish, and then your body stores it, mostly in your muscles, but also in your brain. Its job is to help your body produce energy fast. Specifically, it helps regenerate something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is essentially your body's energy currency. Every cell that needs to do work, whether it's your muscles, your heart, your brain, they all run on ATP. So when you're doing something that demands a quick burst of energy, lifting something heavy, sprinting, or yes, thinking hard under pressure, your body burns through ATP quickly. And creatine is what helps replenish it fast. But here's the thing. Most of us always think of creatine being associated with athletes. That's why they've used it for decades. More creatine available means more ATP gets replenished, which means more energy for hard work. But your brain works hard too, all the time. And here's where it gets really important for us as women. Research has found that women have up to 70 to 80% lower creatine stores than men. 70 to 80% lower. Let that sink in for a second. There are two main reasons for this. First, women generally have less muscle mass than men. And since creatine is primarily stored in the muscle, less muscle means less storage capacity. The other reason is that women tend to eat less red meat and pork, which are the primary dietary sources of creatine. So we're producing less, storing less, and eating less of it. And then add hormones to the equation. Estrogen plays a role in creatine metabolism. As we move through perimenopause and our estrogen levels start to decline, the way our bodies handle creatine changes too. Research suggests this is actually when creatine supplementation may be most beneficial for women, right at the time when our hormones are already creating cognitive challenges. Brain fog, memory lapses, difficulty concentrating, mood changes. Any of this sound familiar? These are all symptoms that millions of women chalk up to just getting older or just menopause. And yes, hormones are a big part of that picture, but the research is now showing us that brain energy, specifically the availability of creatine in the brain, is also part of that picture. Your brain accounts for only about 2% of your body weight, but it uses roughly 20% of your body's energy. It is constantly working, and it needs a steady, reliable supply of ATP to do that work. When brain energy is disrupted, when your cells can't generate ATP efficiently, you feel it. That's that brain fog. It's the mental fatigue that hits in the afternoon. That's the feeling of reaching for a word and it just not being there. research has found that women have lower creatine concentrations, specifically in the frontal lobe, which is the part of the brain responsible for mood, cognition, memory, and emotional regulation. The very things that feel off when we're depleted. And here's what's the compelling part of the study. These studies show that creatine supplementation appears to restore and support brain energy levels, which improves cognitive performance, particularly under stress, during sleep deprivation, and in aging populations. In other words, exactly the conditions most women over 40 are living in every single day. So let's talk about what the research is actually finding, because this is not fringe science. This is peer-reviewed, published research from universities and medical centers around the world. A systematic review and meta-analysis, which means researchers looked at the results of the multiple studies together, found that creatine supplementation improved memory, attention, and processing speed in adults. Processing speed, by the way, is one of the cognitive functions that declines earliest with age. That's the ability to quickly take in information and respond to it. So when it slows down, everything from driving to following a conversation, all of that feels harder. Now, the benefits were most pronounced in older adults and in situations of high mental stress or sleep deprivation, two states that, again, most of us know very well. Another study found that during periods of high mental stress, the brain actually requires more creatine because there's more ATP turnover happening. So when life is most demanding, deadlines, caregiving, managing everything at once, that's exactly when your brain's creatine needs are the highest. And if your stores are already lower than they should be, that gap gets wider. Here's something I didn't expect to find in this research, and I think it's really significant. There is growing evidence that creatine supplementation improves mood and reduces symptoms of depression, and the benefits appear to be even more pronounced in women than in men. A couple of the studies looked at creatine supplementation combined with standard antidepressant treatment and found meaningfully reduced depressive symptoms in women, both in adolescents and adults. The theory is that creatine helps restore the brain energy environment that supports healthy mood regulation. Now, depression rates are about twice as high in women as in men. They spike during hormonal transitions like perimenopause, postpartum, menopause. And here we have a supplement with a strong safety record and emerging evidence that it may support the very brain chemistry involved in mood stability. Look, I want to be clear. I am not saying creatine replaces treatment for depression. What I'm saying is that the research is interesting enough that every woman should know about it. Okay, now, let's talk about sleep, because I know many of you are on that struggle bus, and what I found here genuinely surprised me. Sleep problems in perimenopause and menopause are not a character flaw, and they are not just in your head. Between 40 and 60% of women in perimenopause report sleep difficulties. After menopause, that number jumps to 60%. And the reasons are real, and they're layered. Estrogen and progesterone both play active roles in regulating sleep. Estrogen helps control body temperature, which is why declining levels trigger hot flashes and night sweats that yank you out of a deep sleep at 2 a.m. Progesterone has a calming, GABA-like effect on the brain. It's literally sedating by nature, and when it drops, that natural wind-down mechanism weakens. Melatonin, the hormone that signals your body it's time to sleep, also starts losing its effect with age, and cortisol, which we could do a whole episode on, tends to run higher in midlife women, and high cortisol is just basically jet fuel for insomnia. So add all that to the fact that midlife brings its own special pile of stress, careers, aging parents, kids launching, relationship shifting, and you have a genuinely perfect storm for terrible sleep. I know this. You know this, the research knows this. So here's where creatine enters this sleep conversation. And I want to explain the mechanism because it's actually really fascinating. I know it's kind of nerdy, but bear with me. One of the primary functions of sleep, like one reason scientists believe we need it so desperately, is to restore the brain's energy. All day long, your brain is burning through ATP. As that energy depletes, a byproduct called adenosine builds up. And adenosine is essentially your brain's "I'm exhausted, please go to sleep" signal. The more adenosine accumulates, the stronger the drive to sleep. This is called homeostatic sleep pressure, and it's the brain's way of saying we need to restore the energy. By the way, this is exactly how caffeine works. It temporarily blocks adenosine receptors, which is why coffee makes you feel more awake. It's actually not giving you energy. It's just blocking the signal that you need rest, which is so fascinating. So here's where the creatine fits in. Research suggests that when creatine keeps the brain better supplied with energy, when it helps replenish ATP more efficiently throughout the day, there's less energy depletion, less adenosine buildup, and therefore less of that desperate, I must sleep right now pressure accumulating. Your brain doesn't end the day running on empty. So there was a 2017 animal study published in the Journal of Sleep Research that found that creatine supplementation reduced sleep need and homeostatic sleep pressure, and specifically attenuated the adenosine spike that normally occurs during sleep deprivation. Okay, so in plain English, creatine appeared to keep the brain's energy more stable, which reduced how hard the body was pushing for recovery sleep. Now, I want to bring that to women specifically because the human research is starting to come through. There was a 2024 randomized controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients, which was a double-blind study, and that means that neither the participants nor the researchers knew who was taking creatine and who was taking a placebo. Okay, so this study looked at women who supplemented with 5 grams of creatine daily for 6 weeks while doing resistance training twice a week. The women taking creatine showed improved total sleep duration on resistance training days compared to the placebo group. The researchers believe the mechanism involves creatine reducing oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain while improving brain bioenergetics, which over time has a favorable effect on sleep. And so this is exactly what we'd expect if the energy restoration theory of sleep is correct. And then there was a brand new study in 2025, specifically in perimenopausal and postmenopausal women, average age of 54, that found creatine supplementation combined with resistance training led to meaningful improvements in sleep quality. Perimenopausal women in particular reported fewer nighttime awakenings, fewer of those 2 a.m. wide awake moments. That alone is worth paying attention to. There's also a 2024 study published in Scientific Reports that found a single high dose of creatine partially reversed the cognitive damage from sleep deprivation, with peak effects at 4 hours and benefits lasting up to 9 hours. Now, I want to be careful about how I frame this one because I am absolutely not suggesting you take a massive dose of creatine instead of sleeping. Sleep is not optional. It is medicine. But if you are a woman in midlife who is doing all the right things and still struggling, you're still waking up in the middle of the night, still dragging through the afternoon, the emerging research suggests that creatine may help your brain handle those disruptions with a little more resilience. Okay, not instead of sleep, in support of a brain that is trying its best when sleep is hard to come by. Okay, now this is the part that really gets my attention because, like I said, brain health is personal to me, and I want to share everything I find that might matter. Researchers at the University of Kansas conducted a pilot study, the first of its kind, looking at creatine supplementation in people who already had Alzheimer's disease. So they gave participants a higher dose of creatine for 8 weeks. They measured creatine in the brain using MRI imaging, and they assessed cognitive function. The results showed an 11% increase in brain creatine levels, along with moderate improvements in working memory and executive function in people who already had Alzheimer's. That is remarkable. The researchers are theorizing that by increasing the brain's available energy, creatine may help preserve the cognitive functions that are being compromised by the disease process. And beyond Alzheimer's, creatine has shown neuroprotective effects more broadly, meaning it may actually help protect brain cells from damage and support the kind of cognitive resilience we all want as we get older. Okay, this is not a magic pill. There is no magic pill. But when we are talking about protecting our brains for the long game, and I am absolutely playing the long game, this is a tool worth knowing about. I'd be leaving something important out if I didn't mention what creatine does for the rest of your body, because for women over 40, this matters too. Postmenopausal women who supplemented with creatine and did resistance training showed improvements in muscle size and function and favorable effects on bone density. We are going to do a full episode on bone health really soon because bone resorption in midlife is a topic that doesn't get nearly enough airtime. But for now, just know creatine's benefits aren't limited to the brain. It is a genuine whole body tool for women at this life stage. So let's get practical because information without action is just noise, and that is not why you're here. First, talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement, especially if you have kidney issues, if you're on medications, or if you have any health conditions that might be relevant, right? This is not a throwaway disclaimer. Like, this is real guidance. For most healthy women, creatine has an excellent safety record. It's one of the most studied supplements in the world, and it has decades of research behind it. The potential risks are pretty mild. Some people will experience temporary water retention in their muscles. Some people have digestive discomfort at higher doses. But the most studied form of creatine is creatine monohydrate. This is the one with the most research behind it. It's widely available and it's generally the least expensive. You'll see other forms marketed, creatine ethyl ester, buffered creatine. And while some of those may have advantages in terms of digestive tolerance for some people, creatine monohydrate is still the gold standard. So here's how to think about dosing, because there are actually two answers depending on your goal. For general health, muscle support, bone health, energy, overall wellness, the research supports a dose of about 5 grams per day. You don't need to do a loading dose. That 20 grams a day for a week protocol is for athletic performance only. For everyday health, a steady 5 grams daily is the approach most commonly used in research, and it's well tolerated by most people. But for brain-specific benefits, cognitive function, memory, mental clarity, some researchers are now recommending 10 grams per day, and some are recommending even more than that. Here's why. Creatine doesn't cross the blood barrier as easily as it enters muscle tissue, so higher amounts may be needed to meaningfully raise creatine levels in the brain specifically. So a 2025 peer-reviewed study found that 10 grams daily doubled brain creatine levels compared to lower doses, with neuroimaging showing increases in the gray matter, white matter, and thalamus, which are the areas most linked to memory and cognition. Researcher Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who holds a PhD in biomedical science and focuses on nutrition and brain aging, she specifically cites 10 grams daily as the dose needed for meaningful brain benefits. And research from Texas A&M's Exercise and Sports Nutrition Lab found that 10 grams per day enhanced cognitive function in healthy adults. So here's my honest take. If your primary goal is general health and body composition, start with 5 grams. If protecting your brain is your top priority, especially if you're in perimenopause or beyond, if you're dealing with brain fog, or if you have a family history of cognitive decline, 10 grams daily is worth a conversation with your doctor. Either way, you don't need to start at the higher dose. You can start at 5 grams and work up if brain health is your focus. It mixes really easily into water, into coffee. I mean, I don't drink coffee, but for those of you who do, you can mix it into your coffee. You can also mix it into a protein shake. It's largely flavorless in its monohydrate form, and most people find it really easy to take consistently. I actually mix mine in with my electrolytes in the morning. So you want to take this consistently because consistency is the whole point here, right? It's not a supplement that you'll feel dramatically different from on day one. It works by gradually increasing your body's creatine stores over time. So give it at least 4 to 8 weeks before you evaluate whether it's doing anything for you. So who is this most relevant for? Honestly, if you're a woman over 40 listening to this podcast, I'd say creatine is worth a conversation with your doctor, but especially if you're in perimenopause or beyond, because that's exactly when your estrogen decline is already affecting how your body handles creatine and when the brain health benefits will really matter most. So also, if you eat little to no red meat, pay attention here too, because plant-based eaters tend to have a lower baseline creatine stores, which means more room to benefit from supplementation. And if you're dealing with brain fog, memory issues, mood changes, or sleep disruptions that aren't fully explained by other factors, this is worth looking into. Same if you're already doing resistance training, which most of you should be. Creatine appears to amplify the benefits of strength work for both muscle and bone, which are two things that really matter enormously at this stage of life. And if protecting your brain for the long haul is a priority, whether that's because of your own health goals, someone you love, or simply because you want to stay sharp and present for decades to come, which I hope we all do, this is one of the most evidence-backed tools we have right now. So talk to your doctor, do your research, and consider whether it belongs in your routine. So before I close out today, I want to connect this back to the bigger picture because creatine doesn't exist in isolation. It's one piece of a much larger approach to healing your body. Here's what I want you to know from 8 years of living this. When you eat real whole food, real protein, healthy fat, no sugar, no processed junk, your body starts to function the way it was designed to. Your hormones stabilize, your inflammation goes down, your energy comes back, your brain clears. The thin adapted system is built on exactly that foundation. And what we're seeing in the research on creatine, that it supports brain energy and cognitive function and mood, sleep, muscle, and bone, all of that works better in a body that is already healing. These things tend to build on each other. So if you're brand new here and you're thinking, okay, where do I even start? Start at thinlicious.com/happy. That's where you'll find everything you need to take your first steps. And if you're already in the Thinlicious community and you've been wondering whether creatine might be worth adding, I hope today gave you the information you need to have that conversation with your doctor. I'll leave you with this today. We spend so much time worrying about our weight, our waistlines, our jean size, and those things matter. I'm not dismissing them. But your brain is the most important organ in your body. It's how you love your family. It's how you show up at work. It's how you're present with your grandkids. It's how you remember things and learn things and feel things. And we live in a world where brain health matters more than ever, where the research is finally catching up to what many of us already feel, that what we eat and how we move and how we care for our bodies has a direct impact on how our brains function as we age. That's not scary, that's empowering. I want you to know there are things you can do, real evidence-backed things, eating real food, moving your body, sleeping enough, managing your stress, and yes, potentially adding a daily scoop or two of creatine monohydrate to your morning routine. 5 grams to start, 10 grams if your brain is the priority. These aren't small things, they're the things that add up, and they add up over years into a life where you're still sharp and present and showing up for the people you love and for yourself. And that's the goal. That has always been the goal. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And leave a review if you haven't already. It genuinely helps more women find this show. And I'll see you next time on Feel Better, Live Free.